Snooze, you lose.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, for a voting/work session. We're going to start with the Parks Bill. Senator Elfreth. Got a bunch of amendments?
There we go. Okay. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So colleagues, you have a lot in front of you. We tried to distill but also provide information on the amendments in multiple ways. So we have a chart, handy chart that walks through the amendments one by one, page line. I'm happy to walk through that.
Parks.
Parks.
Where's this park?
Where is the handy chart?
Where's the handy chart?
It's all, is this the part?
Yeah.
Front of the point.
This is right?
Erica.
Is that wrong? Is that the wrong
I
bill?
think she's doing
Yeah,
541.
that, George has it, yeah.
Okay.
The Parks Bill.
Yes, 541, right?
541.
Got it.
Got it, okay. Handy chart,
This is 541 by Senator.
yes. We have another amendment, yes, okay.
Is this the handy chart?
That's the chart.
This 40-page thing is the handy chart?
Well, no, it also includes the reprint
Oh,
because we
okay.
used a lot of paper today, I apologize.
All right.
Okay, I'm happy to walk through these amendments.
Yes?
Okay, let's do that. Okay. Throughout the bill, while we refer to them as park rangers, technically they are Park Service Associates, so the bill changes that, so their official titles
Okay.
become park rangers. Second box requires DNR to put their electronic asset management system when a project was added.
Okay.
Clarifies that the asset evaluation team will access the condition of structures, infrastructures, and landscapes in their
Okay.
conditions assessment reports. Requires DNR to include estimates on preservation, not just restoration, in their system-wide survey of historic resources.
Okay.
Clarifies that the critical maintenance fund can only be used for state park projects, not necessarily forests and wildlands, just park projects.
Okay.
Authorizes the department to utilize the $5 million for historic preservation in coordination with a non-governmental organization. This amendment is needed, we've a lot of, it'll be a challenge to spend all the money we're putting in this, and so we believe the park system will need partners in doing that, and historic preservation, or another non-governmental entity would be a good partner in that.
Didn't we pass a bill last year about people living on
I'm sorry.
Didn't we pass a bill last year about living on a park property and historic? That was your bill, wasn't it? If they live it in, they gotta fix it up, yeah.
Huh? Sounds like a great.
I guess
plan.
this doesn't affect that anyway.
It would not affect that.
Okay.
Okay. This next amendment on bill page 9 is the request of the Department of Natural Resources to create the Great Maryland Outdoors Fund within DNR. That would support outdoor recreation, and the bill would authorize the governor to include up to $3 million in the budget for that fund. It's also our hope that the $15 million our congressional delegation just announced last week for parks could also be used as a funding source for this piece.
Wait a minute. What's
Yes,
the Great Maryland Outdoor Fund,
yes.
outdoor recreation?
Yes.
Okay.
A
Isn't
lot of
it just struck me as funny, isn't everything supporting outdoor recreation?
They're parks.
Yes.
So
a lot
what's
of-
specific about this?
This is marketing, advertising, supporting their new Office of Outdoor Recreation, at request of DNR.
So it really is a marketing thing?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, okay. Bill page 10 requires that 2 of the 5 positions that we are outlining in the acquisition and planning be assistant attorney generals that have real estate experience. There's a backlog of, in our view, of acquisitions, and having 2 AAGs would help with that backlog.
Okay.
We added 2 citizen members to the Oversight Commission, 1 each appointed by the presiding officers.
Yep.
Okay. We changed the staffing of the Oversight Commission from DLS to DNR. That was at the request of DLS.
I bet.
Okay. Obviously, you can see on the right panel where these amendments are coming from. The next requires the department in its annual report to the commission, this Oversight Commission, that it include the condition of the park system's natural and cultural resources as well, so kind of a broad view.
Okay.
The next clarifies that what we call the CLRSP, the Comprehensive Long-Term Strategic Plan,
Please don't call it that.
Okay, noted. Will include the feasibility of establishing new state parks through both land acquisition and redesignation of existing lands when appropriate.
Clarifies the
Okay.
comprehensive.
The next adds trail connectors to the comprehensive long-term strategic plan.
Okay.
Next, adds intent language to create a state park in Prince George's County within the Beltway.
I'm sorry, what is,
Yeah.
what's the definition of trail connectors?
Connecting of trails.
It's like outdoor recreation in the park.
Yeah, right. I assume it's like putting up blazes, like
sorry?
a trail blaze that tells you go with one way or another way.
It's more that we have, my belief, we can call John Griffin, but belief is when we have parks that are close by, that there might be the
Oh.
ability to connect.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, but I will triple check that for you.
Okay.
John might be listening and texting me now. Okay. So the next is the Prince George's Amendment. It's our intent to find that. Again, that's an equity and certainly a transit equity goal the commission had.
Yep.
The next changes the plan from an economic plan to a partnership plan. These are the partnership parks that we talked about. And National Park Service has this wonderful model. We'd like to incorporate it here in Maryland. The next creates a process and authorizes DNR to enter into MOUs to create those partnership parks with locals, nonprofits, or by county agencies. The next adds intent language to ensure that if the state acquires a parcel called Cars Beach, that it become a partnership park through an MOU process outlined in the bill.
Okay.
The next reduces the MALF, which is the Maryland Agricultural Land PH. It's a program within Department of Ag, reduces the payback by 2 million and puts contingent language on the passage of Senate Bill 942, which is Senator Griffith's bill that would utilize that funding out of MALF. The next, there was a drafting error when we redesignated the park rangers as first responders. We accidentally put all the presumptions that fire and police have into that. That was a mistake. We're pulling all of those back with the exception of Lyme's disease. And everybody's in agreement on that one.
Great.
Per the good senator from Western Maryland, we are extending the State Lakes Fund another 3 years at $1 million a year in the critical maintenance. We are requiring reporting on the reactivation of Fort Tonalawe State Park. And lastly, in order for all the funds to be created, we are moving the effective date from July 1 to June 1.
Questions on these amendments? Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you go back on the amendment for page 16, after line 2, where you talk about Cedarville State Forest.
Yes.
To expound on that a little bit.
Yes, so it's, part of the challenge we are trying to address here is that when DNR is thinking about new acquisitions and new state parks, that they better communicate that frankly to the General Assembly, so we know what's kind of down the pipeline.
Right.
And this is saying that in that plan that they're providing us once a year, that they can acquire or establish new state parks either through new land acquisition or a redesignation of a state forest or a state wildland.
Okay. And that redesignation of the existing lands, and this is requiring that they, through that comprehensive long-term strategic plan, that they are communicating that with who?
With the commission, the oversight commission that we're establishing here. Part of the challenge is, at the congressional level, any new federal national park has to go through an act of Congress, so they're very engaged. In Maryland, DNR can just do it, and that's fine, but we would like a little more engagement between the General Assembly and DNR.
Gotcha, 27, appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Senator Young?
Just a real small thing on page 2.
Okay,
Park rangers presently are law enforcement officers. You're looking to make park associates park rangers, but not law enforcement?
the bill as drafted already designates them as first responders, but not we had a long back and forth in the commission about law enforcement officers and all those abilities or not. We decided to not touch that, but we say in the bill itself that they would be designated first responders. Our goal is that they would have, just as the benefits we talked about today, some property tax credits, retirement income tax credits, things like that.
I'm just worried about the EMS problem I've been trying to work out.
Okay,
Law enforcement officers right now cannot act as EMS or whatever.
okay,
After 17 years, we're just getting the park associates to be recognized as EMS.
okay.
But if we're calling them both park rangers, that's how we got in trouble 17 years ago, that they've been sitting on for all these years. I don't want to reconfuse that.
I think I understand, and now that Matt is back, maybe he can
I'm not
understand.
sure I understand.
Well-
All this does is change it.
Change their name.
They were called Rangers, now they're called Associates.
And we're changing it back to Rangers.
And they're going back to Rangers.
The law enforcement officers have been called rangers all along. The associates are not rangers. They are not law officials.
Okay,
So now we're calling them both rangers.
I see.
This is a long storied history. I'm pretty sure, Senator, that the 17 years ago you're talking about, they separated those out, and those formerly known as law enforcement within the Park Service are now NRP, Natural Resource Police.
Or now what?
Natural Resources Police.
We're not calling them rangers anymore.
They are not designated as rangers, to my knowledge.
Okay.
And this came from the Ranger Association itself, this request.
Okay. I just don't want it to interfere with the 150 employees getting their EMSs.
Can we check on that?
I just got that worked out day before yesterday.
We'll make a note to,
Actually, I'm withdrawing that bill because they promised before Siney died, they would have them all certified as EMSs.
okay. I mean, we all know that they, whether certified or not, they act as first responders when there's incidents within the parks.
The associates aren't allowed to.
Okay. We
And
will,
I don't care about the title other than confusing it. I mean,
okay,
So if it's rangers and they're not police and the natural resources are police, then we'll have to just make sure that they understand that and don't block them again.
okay. We will check on that.
Thanks.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
It's a good bill.
Other than that, it's a great show.
Okay, so those are the substantive amendments, and then we have a set of budget amendments. Would you like me to go through those, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, where are those?
Okay, so this says amendments, they all say amendments.
Oh, okay, I
to
see
Central
'em. Yep.
The one that says 80 million and 70 million at the
Yep,
top? Okay.
yep.
Okay, so, there was a drafting error, in our two buckets of money that we're creating here, our two funds. On your next page and the following pages, we've tried to, per the committee's request, break down the funding sources and what we're spending the money on. And so as not to confuse everybody, because this chart took longer than I would like to admit, I'm just gonna stick with the bill as amended and not talk about the bill, if we take up the amendment, and not talk about the bill as it came in. Because
Okay.
there's some money moving in and out. So, because there was a drafting error, we're fixing a couple of things. As we talked about last week, if you look at the second page with the yellow, okay? The bill's revenue sources are twofold. The forward funding of the program open space repayment, so all of that forward funding that's, I think, extended out to 2028, we're forward funding that all in fiscal year '24. So that's around $131 million. We all know that's a formula. Part of it's a formula, that's where it gets even more complicated. We are going to honor the spend of that in terms of the MALF repayment at 18.6 million and the rural legacy repayment in terms of 5.4 million. So we're not utilizing that money for the park system, but we are taking up the stateside program open space and the local side program open space for this bill, which results in about 106.9 million. Senator Young, you had asked about the local share before. We did more digging. Not only, if we repaid program open space according to the formula, our locals would be getting 26.4 million, that's the local share, split amongst the counties. We all recall this committee included 85 million in fiscal '22, and the governor included 85 million in '23 for local parks and playgrounds, so more of state money for local parks. In addition, because we had an excellent year with real estate this year, we had an overattainment in program open space from the transfer tax. Ironically, that overattainment through the formula is about $24 million more going to locals this year. So in my view, they are made whole despite us using their 24 million for sort of state parks through the repayment. I will pause there because that program open space is a little complicated.
Senator Edwards?
Just so I'm clear, because program open space is important to me, has been for a long time, especially for small communities. So if I heard you right, we're getting more money in. There is a difference between parks and playgrounds and program open
Yes.
space. I hope everybody
Yes.
understands that. Parks and playgrounds basically go to municipalities. Program open space goes to the counties, who works with the municipalities to work within them. So you're telling me or assuring me that program open space will not be hit and money taken away from the local part of that?
In the repayment that we are forward funding in fiscal year '24, not the long-term, the long-term formula remains as it is. But in terms of forward funding that repayment, the bill does take that roughly 26 million, if you ran it through the sieve of the formula, would have gone to locals.
But because of the overattainment, they're still gonna get more money.
They are still gonna get 24 million because of that overattainment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So, where exactly is this, what, 131 coming from?
That would theoretically be general funds that we would have eventually had to spend based on our commitment to repayment. That's all, that, Matt, that's budgeted in our out years,
In 24,
through '28. Yeah. So we're taking it off our books for after '24 by repaying it in one large chunk in '24.
it would have, I'm sorry, it would have been through 28,
28,
but you're just doing it 1 year?
yes, we're scrunching it all together in 1 year,
1 year of 131
yes.
million, some of which is going to rural legacy and
Mouth.
Mm-hmm. 107 million is going to be
Yes, going to parks,
131 one-time payment
yes.
from the general fund.
Yes, and then our obligation to the payback is complete.
I got that.
Okay.
I'm just,
Yep,
I'm filling in the number in my chart in my
Yeah.
head.
You don't understand all this information.
Huh?
You're just a little old country boy.
That's right, that's right. Just a city guy, actually.
It's even tougher.
Okay, lots of lights over here. Senator Zucker.
Okay, so, just trying to get my head around this. So, you mentioned program open space money that you're getting from the dedicated purpose account?
no,
Okay. So tell me where the program open space,
for this repayment,
yeah.
it would have to come from the general fund next year.
Okay, so for FY '24 or FY '23?
For FY '24,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you mentioned the 75 million. Is that coming out of the local playgrounds and,
85 million. No, we're not touching what's in that book. We're not
Okay.
touching that at all. I'm just using that as an argument where we're still investing in
Got it,
counties and
okay.
locals.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Senator Young.
Just a couple comments, actually. First off, y'all did a great job. This has been needed for a long time. I was deputy at the department back in, 1995, 6, in that area. And they started cutting funds, and the department started to slip back then, and it's never stopped. And this goes a long way to correcting that. The one thing I wish you had dealt with
Okay.
is park funds and whatever municipalities have always gotten the short end, and that hadn't changed.
Right.
Local is county and municipal, and most of the money's pushed through the
Right.
counties, and maybe they give some to the locals, and maybe they don't give too much to them. One thing that I wish was either here or in some letter with us addressing it,
Okay.
we were told all the way back then, don't creating new parks because we can't maintain the ones we have. So I know we're talking about creating some new parks. I would hope that there'd be some language that says they could only be created in areas where they don't exist and are really needed, and not become a program just to let people
Yep.
start creating new parks out in
Yep.
nowhere. They really should be in a population area that doesn't have something.
So, Senator, to your first point, representing 2 municipalities, I could not agree with you more on the local side of POS. Our commitment to the advocates this whole time has been, you know, be okay with us using that repayment for parks, and we don't want to mess around with the long-term formula. And what you're suggesting, while I agree with it, would do that with
It
the
would.
long-term formula. But I'd love to work with you on that after we pass this bill. To your second point, also couldn't agree with you more. Part of our goals of the commission, all the way back in the fall, was to look at park equity. And we have a lot of wonderful parks across the state, but many of them are in Senator Edwards' district. Many of them are kind of on the edges of Maryland, and we don't have enough to satisfy demand, certainly, in central Maryland and population centers. DNR has already established a park equity tool where we can literally see on a map who does and does not have access to parks. And it's our intention that this bill and the long-term planning would take that equity tool into consideration when they're figuring out new acquisitions.
Great.
Okay.
Senator King?
I will be supporting this bill, but I've got to tell you, it is so complicated that I couldn't tell you hardly one thing that's in it, and I don't know how we explain that to the members of the Senate in order to vote for it. I think it's probably a great idea, but there is so much in it, and I get worried when we have bills that have so many issues in them that it is really, really hard for anybody to understand. You guys have been working on it from the summer, and you know all the issues. But for the, average Joe on the street to understand it, I think it's very complicated. So I'll support it. I'm just concerned that it is overly complicated.
And we have and can provide to the committee a 2-pager. Unfortunately, it didn't fit to 1 page because your points, it's complex. A 2-pager on everything the bill does, and I will get that to everybody as well.
Senator Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow up on Senator King, I think I'll support the bill because I served on the commission, and I think overall, the commission did good work. Follow up a little bit on what Senator Young said and what you said. The fringes of the state have most of the state parks, or most of the bigger state parks. This also impacts state forests because within this, they can create a state park, or allows them to look at creating a state park in a state forest. And we like to share. So, I've said for years, build some of these things in the metropolitan area where people are. I mean, we like them to come out. They come out, the state parks there, they stay longer than most of the ones in the metropolitan area, like day kind of facilities. But the biggest thing, to follow up to Senator King, you're really going to have to explain the money. We've had arguments over the years of just doing away, forget the repayment, and say goodbye. Don't put it in the budget, don't do anything else. But if you're going to do it, Mr. Chairman, we have the money. This is a one-time shot. Take care of it now, get it out of the road. But you need to, as Senator King said, this is one area I think you really got to explain to people, because they're going to say, why don't you just break it out in pieces till 2028? And why we're doing it through this mechanism to get it off the books, so to speak, so we get back on track, and then we hope future legislators don't do certain things like previous ones done to get us in this position. So I just bring that up for
Very fair.
consideration.
Senator Eckert?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a lot to digest. I'm sitting here thinking, boy, I'd like to have a chart on where the current state parks already are, because I can foresee counties saying, well, we don't have one, or I don't have one, and that whole dynamic. But the other issue is, getting clear in my mind, the moving money pieces in this fiscal year and the ones in next year, because they're different in this year. Some takes place in this year and some takes place in next year. Is it possible to break that out? Or is it on these 2 pages and I'm just
No,
missing it?
all of this is fiscal '24. All of this is the next budget,
Okay.
not fiscal '23, the budget that's before us. Now, there is money in fiscal '23 for parks in the governor's budget, but this bill only handles fiscal '24.
So we're encumbering funds in the future. Yeah, because it's next.
Yes, yes.
Unless we come up with a one-time payment.
If we can forward fund this, that would be wonderful.
Well, that's.
Well, it's just
I
a
mean,
one-time payment regardless.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
And when that occurs, we'll have to figure out and see how the rest of the
Right.
negotiations goes.
Okay. And Senator, to your point, transparency and accountability were big themes in the commission, and that's why we are creating this oversight commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, where that will meet more regularly, but we'll have at least once a year a hearing in which DNR is going to provide their long-term strategic plan to us and the ability for the public to weigh their input as well. So there's more transparency with how and when we create new state parks. And frankly, what projects within existing state parks are addressed or not addressed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it for the moment.
You bet. Okay.
Okay, continuing to explain, the other revenue source, there's significant fund, a significant fund balance sitting in the Program Open Space stateside account. Just not been able to spend that down. Recognizing the current fund balance and the overattainment we achieved with greater transfer tax revenues this year, we are gonna suggest to take 43.1 million out of that stateside and direct that to both of these sources to the 2 funds right next to them. The Critical Maintenance Fund and the Capital Improvement and Land Acquisition Fund. Now, the Critical Maintenance Fund originally in the bill is at $80 million. We wrote the bill before the governor dropped his budget. He forward funded a lot of critical maintenance projects, but we know there's a significant backlog, and this committee's heard over and over again, projects are gonna be more expensive than we anticipate. But that being said, we recognize there's a good chunk getting handled in fiscal '23, Senator Eckert, to your point. So we're gonna lower the critical maintenance fund from 80 million to 70 million. The second fund this creates is the Capital Improvement and Land Acquisition Fund. So think about your fishing piers, think about your kayak launches, your parking lots when appropriate, trails when appropriate, but also that acquisition of new parkland. That would all go into this kind of fund bucket of Capital Improvement and Land Acquisition Fund. So that would be $80 million through the amendment, and that's made up from the remainder of the POS repayment and the balance, the 43.1 million of the POS fund balance. We're lowering that fund balance because we just didn't think we needed all of it.
How much is left?
In the fund balance, from last year, 50 million, and that doesn't include what's in this year. The next governor will have, Matt, maybe 100 million to start off in POS stateside. A lot of money.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that's the bill as amended. I did include a chart on the bill as introduced, but I don't want to confuse folks.
Don't do that.
Okay.
No.
Senator Jackson.
Just have a question on the last portion, where we took the 36.9 and 43,
Chart is 200.
where we had the 80 million. So is there a
Yep.
replenishing component to that as we move forward, or is that one time? What are we doing?
Oh, no, it would just set up the fund at 80 million, and then
If you add this side up.
State Parks has
On this side.
3 years to
This
spend
side
that
has
down.
200.
So we're creating that special fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
I would love for it to be renewed if we want to do that in the future.
Senator Young?
Just say one last thing that I think Senator Edwards will agree with. I think any place there's extra money or any place where we shift money, it ought to go to what I call critical maintenance. We really need to take care of the parks that we already have.
Yeah.
We need to clean the lakes. We need to do the maintenance where parks have been let go. It's, I think it's real important we just don't let our existing parks run down. And then any dollars we have that we should put towards keeping them up as a first priority.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
we're checking math over here.
Okay. Our last two pie charts, courtesy of Dylan, just talk about how the money's gonna be spent, if you prefer to learn visually. The first is the program open space repayment, and as you can see in the chartreuse, the majority would be going to the critical maintenance fund, Senator Young. The next blue section would go to
What's
the,
chartreuse, anyway?
it's like a yellow, green,
Thank you, Mr.
just trying
Chairman.
to have. The puke green, if you would, on the chart.
Gotcha.
The next largest chunk would go to that capital improvement and acquisition fund,
Yep.
and the remainder go to the two commitments outstanding. The next chart talks about the sources of funds, again, just visually. The true green is the fund transfer, and the orange is the program open space repayment, and that's just for the capital improvement and acquisition funds.
Yes, Senator?
Chairman, the fund transfer is from the general fund?
It would
Or is-
have to be, yeah.
Okay, got it.
The fund transfer of the repayment, the payback of the repayment, but the fund transfer of the program open space stateside is just sitting in a bank account right now. This would authorize the transfer of that fund. And we'd hope the governor would do that. I know it's a lot of math here. I apologize, I try to make it as clear as possible in the chart. It's probably as clear as mud. Try.
The number's right. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions on all of these amendments?
Worn me down.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Was there a motion first?
Yeah, there was.
Oh. Okay, this is on all the amendments. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, on the bill.
No,
We have two more.
What?
we got more, man.
Oh, my
The good vice chair and Senator McCray have offered amendments.
Okay, let's bring it on. Senator McCray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I'm sure that everybody in this room committee knows that the city obviously doesn't have any specific state parks, but also wanted to be reflected in the bill. Was able to caucus with the folks over in the House and the folks over in the Senate to get a better understanding of how the city could be reflected. And the suggestion was to raise up the open space money from $6 million to $10 million for the city's allocation. And that's the amendment that is in front of you.
6 out of 10, 6 to 10,
6 to 10.
out of
Program open space.
Formula moving forward.
the 131, no. Formula moving forward, not
Yeah.
for this project, okay.
Yep.
And so it was a readjustment of the formula that rebases everybody?
No, just the city.
So the city's never actually gone through the POS formula. The city's always been a standalone grant that's gone outside of the POS formula. And it's gone up every year since 2017, and then it topped out at 6 million in fiscal year 2020, where it was gonna stay in perpetuity, and this would take it from that 6 million up to 10 million going forward.
And how is that
24.
standalone grant funded every year?
It comes out of the POS pot before that
Off the
POS.
top.
Yeah, off the top before you run it through the
Gotcha,
formula.
gotcha. You have a question about this amendment? Okay,
So it's not one-time monies, it's adding from 6, it's adding 4 million that will be every year from here on out.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Just want to get it straight. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, is there a motion on this amendment?
Second.
All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Let's see how well you do.
Yeah, exactly. You wanna, Matt, you wanna read or explain the amendment?
Sure, this amendment's just uncodified language, added to the back of the bill. It's gonna require, the Department of Natural Resources, but before October, 1st, 2023, to look at, identify opportunities to create registered apprenticeship programs to help,
Surprise.
to help address, I think one of the things Senator Elfreth's commission found was that there were staffing shortages within the parks world, and this would require the department, in collaboration with the Department of Labor, to look at setting up apprenticeship programs to try and solve some of their workforce shortage issues.
Mr. Chairman?
I think you're gonna be better off if you don't say anything.
Fair enough. Fair enough, fair enough.
Is there a,
I'll move favorable.
Senator Zucker?
Remember, did we had talked about it, but is there anything with the state utilizing the foster care programs? That's right.
Okay, on this amendment, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
I have two technicals.
We have two technical amendments that,
Well,
Matt.
one of them sponsored, Senator Solling asked to be on the bill.
How many people, are we all on the bill?
Let me see here.
Okay. Everybody who'd like to be on the bill, raise your hand. Well, okay, we'll just to make it easy.
Everybody on the committee wants to be on it?
Everybody on the committee.
Just don't ask me to explain it.
All right. And then the second issue was brought to my attention by the library. There's a clause whenever we have a study done that triggers the library to store the study that gets done. You have to cite section 212-509 of the state government article to require the DLS library keep it.
Okay, with all these technical amendments.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of technical amendments? Okay, as amended, fully amended.
Favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good, congratulations. Good job, good
Very
job.
good job,
Good,
very
good, good job. All right.
You're the floor leader. Yeah. What she said.
Any chance with that last thing there?
Oh, when?
Well, they're there now.
In a minute. Okay. Senator Alfreth.
That again, okay.
Yep, let's get this done.
I hope while longer, this is less complicated, the Conservation Finance Act, we found the amendments and Matt is back. So I'm confident that all is right with the world.
How many
348.
amendments are there?
There are two amendments, one from MES. I don't want to call it technical, but they would like, MES has requested to be included in the pay for success contracting that we allow for many other state agencies in the bill. MES would also like to participate in that program.
And you're fine with that?
I am fine with that.
What's the downside? Anything?
Not that I can think of. no.
No, I believe the intent was that they were included from the beginning. It was, from the way I read the request for the amendment.
Okay.
Okay, and the second is at the request of the good senator from Western Maryland to ensure that every task force and work group in the bill has geographic representation.
Yes. The one commission that was in the bill does have geographic representation requirement that he was referring to, and then the task force that I believe is in the uncodified portion of the bill did not have that language, and so we're adding it to the secretary's appointment to the task force.
Okay. Senator?
And I was clear, working with the bunch of bill on, what was the bill we passed last year, Bay Restoration.
Clean Water Commerce Act, or the Trees
What
Act.
was it? Yeah, the tree bill.
Okay.
Okay. That we would take money out of the Bay Restoration Fund, and we prioritized last year that municipalities, if they met the criteria, they got priority, correct? So I'm assured that this doesn't change that. They still will get the priorities.
It does not, and I would venture to say that because this bill invites in the private sector to solve some of the challenges that until now the state has been funding, I think that would free up even greater BRF money for our priorities. That's the goal of the bill.
Yeah, this is a procurement bill. This isn't affecting funding going forward. This is creating more opportunities to use unique procurement activities.
Just want to make sure they still get priorities.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Matt.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, what's going on?
Everybody's comfortable with the amendments? We just
Okay.
need a motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendments? Opposed?
Second.
All those in favor as amended? Opposed? All right, 2 for 2. All right, now it gets tough. There's this Gazzoni bill. 594, I want to do the winery one.
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. I know Senator Young has a little issue here, and if you want to talk about it later, that's fine, but I'd like to move it if we can. 574, the Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Fund.
Second.
You want to discuss it all? Or, well, we heard what you said, and I think you got a point. I think you got a point, but I mean, I don't.
What bothers me is we're looking for more money.
And I think a lot of their goal was to keep staff more than it is to help. I found that out in my bills. Like, if you had to opt out, they wouldn't require as many staff to go find people to come in.
Uh-huh.
And same thing with the other part. You know, if I say I want to be an organ donor, I don't want them asking my family. I've got 4 sons, you know.
They can't agree on anything, I know them.
One of them probably wouldn't agree.
Right.
And I don't want to say I want to be an organ donor and then have them go back and and this would be true in a lot of families, and start arguing about it, whether to do it, and all of a sudden I'm not an organ donor. And that's a lot of work time on their part again that I don't think is necessary. So I don't think they need as much money.
I mean, first of all, it's not a lot of money. We know that. I mean, $100,000 in the
No.
scheme of things is not a lot of money. However, I mean, you make some good points. Go ahead. I mean, I don't know what we can do about it. You had a bill before to force,
I had a bill that rather than opt in to being a donor, you had to opt out. And they opposed it. And
that's a little tricky too, I think, though.
which means they have to go out and try to convince people to opt in.
Right.
And, you know, I think when you get your license, they just explain it. Do you want to be a donor or not? If you don't say no, you are. But again, I don't want to give them staff money to argue over whether I'm going to be a donor or not when I said I was.
Because they're only bringing in 120,000 annually.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's what advanced directives are for.
Senator?
Yeah, I must say, I find Senator Young's argument pretty persuasive in general, and it would strike me that not moving forward with the bill in a timely fashion would be a positive thing to do, is to
Okay.
hold it up and
That's fine.
let there
Anybody,
be some conversation.
I'm willing to hold anything if the people want to talk a little more. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was actually in finance on another bill today, so I actually did not have the benefit of the hearing on this bill. So I appreciate those who've requested a hold would like
Sure.
to, yes.
You bet.
Thank you.
What's that?
One issue. This is the drafting, we just need to repeal, there's two caps in there. We just need to repeal one of them.
Oh, all right.
Let me explain real quick.
Wait a second. So, I think, just to talk about this a little bit more, because I think it's an interesting point. I actually don't necessarily like the fact that you have, you have to opt out.
Or you would.
Huh?
That's not what it is now.
What, I know, but that was one of, I think, the senator's
Yeah,
points,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
was his
yeah,
bill.
yeah.
And I'm saying that I'm not sure I like that. However, I don't like the idea that, as you point out, that that someone else can change a decision that you made, which I think that's personally the bigger point. And I don't know how to,
With me too.
what's that?
That's the bigger point with me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how, I mean, so, interestingly enough, I mean, I assume we have some control over this, in terms of that issue of whether or not your decision can be overturned. And I'm curious about this, I mean, I assume this group was established as sort of quasi-governmental, is that right? Somebody got that?
I'm not sure they're governmental at all.
How did they get the right to make this determination?
Well, I think they formed just like the Diabetes Association or any other association, and then they took it upon themselves.
Senator Jackson?
Just wondering, I mean, in my world, I mean, that driver's license is a legal document, and what's on that legal document is what we go by, right? So I have a challenge with, someone, if I decide to do this, I just have my license renewed, and they ask that question. Organ donor or not, you make that decision, it's sealed, it's in record, it's in the record, and for someone else to say, if something were to happen to me, someone else to have that say-so, I don't think that's proper. I don't know, so I agree with the senator on that.
Yeah.
But I think, your license is a legal document, so.
I think we need to get an opinion on this. Let's get an opinion on this.
Mr. Chairman?
Whose bill, it's your bill, right? Well, what is the legal grounds in which an organization or anyone can, or the government itself
Reduce your
can
person.
can take away, to do something other than what you've established
Yeah.
on your, through your license? Senator, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
legal document that is signed.
Well, this is
And
the
the,
question.
and the group is Maryland Donor for Life is the one that's saying that they can change that? Yeah.
I don't,
I mean, I don't
yeah, I think
understand that.
that's a reasonable question. Senator King?
I just remember when I went through the whole process with my husband passing away, his directives and what was on his license, they did not give me any choice of whether I wanted to do that or not. That was the only way to go.
But who was it?
Well, he had the directive on his driver's license.
No, I'm just saying, who made that determination? Somehow, in some cases, this group is making some determination to
Yeah.
talk to family.
The nursing home and the doctors made
Right,
that.
so I mean, I would imagine in most cases, it doesn't even, why would it even go to this group for that?
Is it a question of when the driver's license is silent?
No,
Okay.
has nothing to do, yeah.
I don't know how they get notified, but
Right, that's the thing that's curious to me.
My last bill, they made it real clear if the family objected, they didn't go through it.
I mean,
And
I don't mind the idea, like I said, because I think opting in is probably something that I'm more comfortable with. And that we have a group out there that's encouraging it, I think is a fine thing, and that we fund that group, I think is a fine thing. But it's this next step that's curious to me, and I'd like to know, maybe we get a Attorney General's opinion of how is it, quote, enforced, right? How is the decision that the individual made by putting that on their license, how is that enforced?
well, I think if nothing else, if we approve the money, we could put it on the condition that they honor the license and do not get involved with the family.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but I still just don't get how this happens.
I don't know either.
Senator Eckert?
I just wonder if there's a disconnect, because I know even with an advance directive, sometimes people in situations don't honor it. And you have to really hold folks to it and be very explicit. I'm wondering if the driver's license is only one piece of information, and if somebody dies and you don't have access to that information, then how would you know if you didn't have it so identified on your advance directive? And maybe that's what we need to
filled out
figure out.
all the advance directive.
Pardon?
We had filled out the advance directive way ahead of time, so that there was no question.
Well, maybe that's why, yeah, there wasn't.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering, if there's a disconnect. The
Yeah.
driver's license is separate and distinct from the advance directive, so how do you match them up? I know we just found out, like, there's a mental health advance directive. We've passed it, it's supposed to be operational, but there's no way to access it, so it's not functional. And I'm just wondering if that's where the disconnect is.
Right. Senator Edwards?
Isn't there a time frame on harvesting of organs? So if you take time to contact the family to figure out, if you don't want to accept what's on the card, and what's the length of time that an organ stays viable to get to somebody?
Senator?
Yeah, maybe somebody knows the answer, or there's something we got, I don't actually know who these people are. What is this organization, and what do they do, and what is their authority? Does anybody know?
The statute designates the Secretary of Health to contract with a nonprofit entity for the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the donor registry.
Ah, so they're a state contractor.
Correct.
Ah, okay, that's very helpful.
I assume they had to be somehow either
Well, that's
quasi
something, but I
or-
didn't know, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think we're stumbling towards success here.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. You got what we want, Philip?
For AG request?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna hold on that, and, Matt has a technical correction on the wine building.
So when the drafter drafted 541 or 594, the winery bill, there were two caps in there and the amount of grants that could go out. And the fiscal note writer pointed out that the capping the number of grants that can go out at $1 million a year doesn't make sense, because there is the potential for there to be more money in that fund than $1 million. So you want to cap the amount of grants that can go out each year at the amount that's in the fund each year. So whatever gets appropriated to the fund is the amount that can be handed out in grants, so that you don't end up just hanging on.
Everybody good
to
with this?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor on that amendment, and all those in favor, aye. Opposed, great, okay. Okay. Good job. That's all I got. That's all we got. Have a good night. See you all tomorrow.